Hello everybody, it's time for another ProGuides video. My name is Nathan Ng and I'd like to welcome you guys back to our channel. In today's video, we're going to be talking about how you can find the crosshair that will help you unleash your full potential. Like many other option settings that are available to you in the game, the crosshair is something that you should be customized in order to your liking and not based on what other people think. This video is gonna do just that, help you guys find what is best for you. Make sure you guys take some notes because we're about to jump right into the video after the question of the day. And today's question is, how often do you change your settings? Personally, I like to keep most of my settings the same. Using the same resolution, video settings, and sensitivity allows me to keep my gameplay consistent, I think, and lets me focus on my game rather than worrying about the settings. I'll never understand how some players can seem to just adjust to new crosshair and sensitivity every other week. Sometimes I do like to change my crosshair and video settings to give my game a fresh look, but I don't do it very often. And without any further delay, let's go ahead and jump through the process of how to find the best crosshair for you. Before we get into the process of building a crosshair, I like to give out a quick little advice. Don't feel like you have to use a crosshair from a professional player. A very common pitfall I see a lot of players jump into is copying settings from pro players, which is not a very good habit. Pros don't use a certain setting because they're objectively better, it's just their personal preference. You won't suddenly improve at the game just because you copy a pro player's settings. That doesn't mean you can't use a pro player's crosshair or resolution if it's comfortable for you, but be sure to try to experiment with your settings on your own and make sure that you have fine-tuned everything to your own personal preferences. Now that I've gotten that all out of the way, let's go ahead and jump right into the crosshair building process. Allow me to introduce you to the map that will make your crosshair creation process extremely easy. This is Crash's Crosshair Generator, which you can find on the Steam Workshop. The map has buttons for customizing every aspect of your crosshair and even has a wall of crosshairs from other players that you can use as a reference or inspiration. Even though Valve added these settings within the game to change your crosshair, I still recommend you use this map. Not only does it allow you to make immediate changes to your crosshair, but it will also allow you to practice it on the map. This saves the hassle of constantly changing your settings while inside of a deathmatch server. Before we continue, I recommend that you pause this video so you can download the map and follow this along with the video in order to create the perfect crosshair. First off, we have crosshair styles. Crosshair styles are what define the behavior of your crosshair, and you have 6 of them to choose from. Let's go ahead and take a look at each one and what they do. Crosshair style 0 is also known as default dynamic. It's one of the least used styles within the game. It's a rather big crosshair with lines on the outside that indicate when you move and shoot. Quite frankly, this crosshair style in CSGO is quite ugly and doesn't give much use because of how big and distracting it can be to players. If you like it though, don't let me stop you from using it. Crosshair style 1 is called default static, and it's a little bit more popular than style 0. It features an aesthetic of the former but without the extra features on the outside. Static crosshairs do not move at all, and that is what most players use. However, a lot of players don't really like the irregularly shaped lines in the style, so it's not something that you see very often. Crosshair style 2 is what are known as dynamic crosshairs. Dynamic crosshairs are the ones that will expand when you move or shoot, which some players find really useful in training their shooting and movement techniques. On style 2 specifically, the amount of distance the crosshair expands is the same on moving and shooting. While I think that this crosshair can be very useful at training your counter-strafing and shooting accuracy, I find that dynamic crosshairs can be really difficult for lining up shots when I'm moving around the map. If you're a fan though, I won't judge. Crosshair style 3 is another dynamic crosshair style with some slight differences. When you move, the crosshair expands way further out than it would be when you're shooting. Quite frankly, the only reason I would use this crosshair style over style 2 would be that if you were trying to make the game a little bit harder for yourself. I don't know anybody who seriously uses this crosshair style, but if you do, then you have my respect. These last 2 crosshair styles are the most common. Style 4 is known as classic static. It uses the classic crosshair shape from the older versions of Counter-Strike, and it doesn't move at all when you move or shoot. This crosshair style is one that is used by a majority of regular players due to its simplicity and lack of distracting features. Another reason this crosshair style is so popular is because it makes lining up set grenades a lot easier, since the crosshair isn't moving alongside you. I personally recommend you use this style, but obviously I can't stop you from doing otherwise. Lastly, we have crosshair style 5. This crosshair style is known as semi-static. This crosshair style comes from Counter-Strike 1.6, where the crosshair is static but it expands when you shoot. If you watch the older professional players, some of them like using this crosshair style because it's what they use in CS 1.6. I'd say that if you want to use any sort of dynamic crosshair, you should probably use this one. However, like all of these crosshair styles, it all comes down to personal preferences and you can get away with whatever style that you choose. Let's go ahead and talk about crosshair size. No matter what they say, in this specific instance, size does matter. The size option in the crosshair generator changes the length of your crosshair. Some players like to use longer crosshairs to help them line up grenades, and others like using shorter crosshairs so they can see more of the map. One thing that you should also keep in mind is that if you ever decide to change your resolution, your crosshair size will also change. Crosshairs actually become smaller as you lower your resolution and increase in size when you switch into a higher resolution. So if you're trying to have a different resolution, remember to adjust your crosshair size accordingly. At the end of the day, this one is pretty straightforward and it all comes down to your own personal taste. There is no correct choice when it comes down to crosshair size. Moving on, we have thickness of your crosshair. This one is pretty self-explanatory. A lot of things I said about size also apply to crosshair thickness, only that the setting changes the width of the lines of your crosshair. Some players like to use thicker crosshairs, but most players will use some pretty thin ones for the sake of visibility. It's your call though, make sure you play around with it and make sure that you can find something that's comfortable for you. Next up, we have to talk about the crosshair gap. The crosshair gap setting defines how far apart all the lines on your crosshair are from one another. Some players will use a larger crosshair gap so the entire head of the model will be shown inside the crosshair, while some players use smaller crosshair gaps for the purpose of visibility. Personally, I would use a smaller gap to help you guys line up with these grenades, but at the end of the day, it's your crosshair and you can do whatever you want. For this part of the video, I'm going to be talking about two crosshair features at once, the outline and the color of the crosshair. Generally, you want to use a crosshair color that is a different color for most of the walls and objects in the game. This will allow you to keep track of your crosshair when it's moving around the map and prevents it from blending into any walls or objects that could mess up your visibility. The majority of players use some variant of bright blue or bright green because there aren't that many walls or objects that have those colors. If you would like to use a different color that might blend in with some parts of the map, then you should consider using a crosshair outline. The crosshair outline adds a stroke of black to your crosshair, which allows it to stick out a little bit better than it would originally be. You can also adjust the thickness of this line as you would with your crosshair. If you're using an unconventional crosshair color like orange or yellow, I definitely would recommend that you try using a crosshair outline. It will definitely help you keep track of your crosshair when playing on maps like Dust 2 or Mirage, where the maps will have this similar color. Here's something that's a little bit more unconventional that's starting to become a little bit more popular with CSGO players. The T-shape option allows you to remove the top line of the crosshair, turning it into, well, a T-shape. I've personally never used a T-shaped crosshair, but I've heard players that play with it and have liked it. They say that using a T-shaped crosshair really helps your visibility due to the fact that it has less stuff on their screen. The only real issue I can see with using a T-shaped crosshair is lining up for certain grenades, but I suppose that's something that you could work on. I've never really tried it, but it might be worth playing with it on your own time and see if it's the right fit for you. Another crosshair add-on that you'll see quite a little bit is the dot in the center. Center dots are useful for lining up grenades and can help you line up your shots for extra precision, but they aren't for everybody. Personally, I use a very small crosshair and a center dot restricts my visibility of the player's heads. If you have a medium or larger size crosshair, then a dot is something that you can look into, but if you're a small crosshair kind of guy like me, then it may not be the way to go. Regardless, try it out and see if it's the right fit. The last major crosshair setting that we're going to be looking at is the alpha setting. This setting will allow you to change the transparency of your crosshair. To be completely honest, I would stay away from this setting. Making your crosshair more transparent can make sense with certain crosshair colors and settings, but in most cases, I would say it's not really necessary. If you make your crosshair too transparent, it might blend in with the objects on the map and you can lose track of where you're aiming. You can play around with this setting if you wish, but I'd rather not, and I actually recommend you stay away from it. I know I'm going to sound like a broken record at this point, but I can't stress it enough. Your crosshair is based on your personal preference. The information in this video is just there to help you guys find that preference. Finding these preferences means that you can be more consistent in your playstyle, and you could probably rank up more because of that. If you find a good crosshair placement, even if it's placebo, you might be hitting more headshots and more kills, which makes you in turn feel better about yourself, which makes you play better at the game. I'm not saying that these preferences will definitely make you rank up, but I'm just saying that there are some positives of taking time to finding these preferences. And with that all being said, that's going to be the end of this video. Hopefully after watching this, you have a better understanding of what it means to have the perfect crosshair and how you can find the one that's for you. Make sure to download Crosshair's crosshair generator and spend some time finding your crosshair that's suited for your liking. Please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss any videos such as this one. If you want to take your CSGO game to the next level, feel free to head over to ProGuides.com as we have a ton of resources there for you guys. We have coaches who have played at high levels who are willing to work with you guys in order to take your game to the next level. And if you want to brush up on the basics, then no problem. Check out some of our in-depth courses to perfect your understanding of the game. And that's going to be it for me. Best of luck on your games.